We welcome to Houston Sports Talk Chronicle beat writer for the Astros, Evan Drellich, and joining us from Seattle, where the Astros are beginning to start a series with the Mariners. Breaking news today, or as we're recording this, that Scott Feldman, who's been the pitching ace for his few starts of the season until this last start against the Royals, where he kind of struggled, he's going on the DL with biceps tendonitis. It's the bad news Astros. If there wasn't for bad luck, I don't know if they would have any luck. Evan, can you give us the latest on him and tell us a little bit about Colin Mayhew?
When you've lost 7 straight, the news you don't want to hear when you're an Astros player arriving in the ballpark today is that your best starting pitcher has gone to the disabled list. It doesn't sound like it's anything terribly serious, just based on the comments Jeff Luhnow gave my colleague Jesus Ortiz today, but we'll find out more when Bo Pard talks to us today. It's bad news. Colin McHugh was a guy that the Astros always liked. McHugh was a little surprised when the Astros went after him in the offseason. When they got him, he was the kind of guy who could have been a relief or starting option, but they really liked him as starting depth, and this is kind of the role they envisioned for him. After Peacock, he was kind of high on the list as a starting pitching option. So this is a chance for him. He runs a very good blog, A Day Older, A Day Wiser, if you haven't checked it out. But yeah, it's disappointing news for the Astros today for sure.
Well, we'll get to more of the pitching later, but let's talk about the Astros' most recent losing streak here. They were supposed to be turning over a new leaf in 2014, but the 5-14 record right now is the same as in 2013. Then we hear all throughout spring training the Astros were supposed to be an improved team this year, and also even Jeff Luhnow last week said they're looking to win at the major league level, but it's not translating.
Today is the 20th game of the season. We're about 1/8 of the season done. Team's going to have a bad 3 weeks. You can't judge certainly anybody's season on the first 3 weeks, but that has not held up. And there was excitement in the first 2 games of the season against the Yankees when the Astros won. They played the Rangers pretty tough in Arlington. They did not play the A's tough. They could have won the one game that Chad Qualls blew the middle game of the series, but yeah, it's been disappointing. The level of play. Jason Castro said yesterday that if somebody had told him this year's Astros team would start with the exact same record as last year's, he would have been surprised, and I think most people would have been surprised. You got to see what the next few weeks bring, but not the start that anybody associated with the Astros wanted to see.
Well, we got real live street noise. We're not kidding. Evan headed to the ballpark as we speak, and hey, if you look up Astros Hope in the dictionary, next to it would be a picture of George Springer. He finally gets the call up. How has he looked to you in his first few games, and what can we expect from him as the season progresses, do you think?
Did you guys see that catch he made yesterday in the first inning?
Oh, yeah, the one with Coco Chris. That was a great one.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of play that, you don't make unless you have that athletic gift and that physical gift and the speed and all that. And he'll continue to make those plays. You hope he doesn't hurt himself diving around everywhere. But that's the kind of player you want. He's looked great. The 5-game hit streak to start his career is certainly what you want. Would have been. I don't think they would be hard pressed to demote him in any situation. But certainly you don't want to see your top prospect come up and struggle terribly out of the gate. And he has not struggled. He's a foot away from his first home run 2 nights ago. He's going to strike out, and you've seen evidence of that so far. But look, he's got more life in his bat right now than 90% of the Astros lineup. So he's been great. I think Astros fans are happy he's finally here, and even amongst the losing, it's something they can feel good about.
Yeah, speaking of that anemic lineup, many of the regulars are hitting below the Mendoza line right now, and you had a game story over the weekend where you were quoting Bo Porter, and he was saying it just wasn't bad luck, but also kind of the approach at the plate. To quote him, he said, you have to be able to use the whole field. And again, when you get a pitch in those situations, you can't miss it. You can't foul it off. You can't take it, and you can't swing and miss. Can you kind of go into further detail about that?
Well, I talked to John Maley, and this quote didn't make the story. But he said, there are 2 things a struggling team will do. You'll either you'll be too aggressive or you'll be too passive. Trying to wait out for the pitch that you feel like you should be swinging at, and then you might miss it because you're being too passive. And that was kind of his feelings, as opposed to the Astros going up there, hacking at everything. They're being too careful, trying not to screw up. But this is the problem with breaking down an entire team slump. It's never one thing, right? Everybody is going through different things at the same time, and that's why it collectively looks so bad. Chris Carter is having timing issues. It doesn't seem to be mechanical as much as he's just not timing his swing, timing fastballs. And I talked to him about that briefly yesterday. Different guys, different things. Jason Castro has one hit off a lefty this year. At some point, the batting average on balls in play has got to go up. It's too low. It's the lowest in the majors by far, which is an indicator of luck. And at some point, they're going to have a few seeing eye singles. They're going to have a few bloops. They're going to have a few rips that are just going to drop in. They haven't had many of those to this point. It's going to turn around. The offense won't be this bad forever. But you worry. You worry when a guy like Chris Carter's hitting, roughly 130, 132. That's alarming when you're 3 weeks into the season.
Wanted to also speak about John Singleton because he's tearing the cover off the ball right down at AAA right now. And with all these Astros struggling, like you mentioned, he's an obvious candidate to be called up here. And you even wrote over the weekend that the Astros would be hard-pressed, if not foolish, to keep Singleton down for long now that his free agency year has been pushed back. So are we going to see him up here hitting in the big leagues sometime soon, the way that he's just, dominating AAA right now?
Personally, from conversations I've had, the sense I get is that they're not going to make him wait until Super 2, which is a moving deadline, but that's projected to be somewhere in June, or people have written July, people have written May. I think it would fall somewhere in June. I don't think we're going to have to wait that far. If they keep hitting like this, and how could they? when you have a guy tearing it up down there, a guy who's on the 40-man roster already, so he's using an option year. At some point, it gets silly, to say, well, we need to see another week to prove himself. What's another week going to make a difference? The argument with Singleton, and I do believe it's a fair argument, is that he had such a hard time last year at AAA that to promote him after 2 weeks and say, well, he's mastered this level might be a little unfair. But on the flip side, you don't have anything else in the major leagues right now that's saying we don't have an opportunity to give Singleton a chance. We'll see how much longer they balance it. I don't think it's a move we're going to see. My feeling is it's going to take some time in May, but I would be surprised if it was late May, because once you get into late May, why wouldn't you just wait until Super 2? And I don't think they're going to want to wait that long.
Well, with Singleton in the minor leagues, I think he's almost Springer's best guy to give him some sort of protection in the order. I guess my question is, if he comes up, who goes down? The candidates, I guess, would be Sanchez, Carter, and Krause as well.
Krause, Carter, Guzman. The issue with Carter is that he's out of options, right? So if you're abandoning Carter, you might be abandoning him his time with the Astros, period. So I don't think they're at the point of doing that. I think they want to give him a fair shot. And I think the same is fair for even a guy they could option at AAA and retain in the organization. They don't want to say, well, we've seen enough of Mark Krause, so let's send him down. And that is kind of the other element of this, is making sure they're not giving up on the guy that they went with to start the season too quickly. But they're watching closely. I think it'll be one of those guys eventually. Singleton could probably play basically every day. I mean, you wouldn't have to start him against the best lefties in the league. Maybe he plays 80% of the time. So you still have use for a right-handed bat. But he would be, once he gets here, basically your everyday first baseman. Or he could also DH.
You saw some of the other guys down with Oklahoma City. You stopped by there. What can you give us as far as an update with any of those other guys? Fultonevich, I guess, is one of the other huge names that the Astros fans are excited to see at some point.
He had gotten off to a rough start when I was down there. And that was something that he felt in the past had been a rough starter. He'll be in the mix at some point. Austin Waits was a guy I couldn't avoid writing about him, because literally everybody I talked to when I was down there was telling me about how well he was doing, and the numbers showed it. He's an outfielder who got a chance because Adron Chambers got hurt on opening day. Chambers sliced up his finger pretty bad. I imagine you guys saw the picture, sliding into second base on opening day. So Waits got a chance to play, and he's done great. So he's a guy, if later in the season the Astros need outfield help, he'd have to be put on the 40-man roster. But he's a name to watch. We've moved on straight from Springer watch to Singleton watch, and I think it'll keep going that way, right? Once Singleton's up here, then we'll go to Fulte watch, or whoever else might be the name of the day,
Exactly. Well, it's not going to be poor Delano DeShields Jr. He had that hit in the face over the weekend at Corpus Christi, and he's going to be out for several weeks.
I think everybody saw those pictures, right? I mean, it's just awful. And the thing about that situation was it's disappointing anyway you cut it. But he had earlier in that day wrote on Twitter something about, life can change in an instant, something very, in hindsight, ominous. So I almost felt worse for him because of that, because he was a guy who was realizing, man, I got to be thankful for my ability to go out there every day. And then, of course, bam, his ability to go out there every day is taken away from him. In the long run, I don't think this will be a huge setback for him as long as he doesn't get back in the box and have any sort of lingering fear. I mean, he's not the first guy to go through this,
Right, right. I guess talking about a guy who was out of the lineup for a while, it was Dexter Fowler at the beginning of the season here. After he was really hitting the ball well, it was disappointing again for the Astros, kind of some tough luck. He started off the season so well, and then he went down. But over the weekend, Barry Bonds came in. Apparently, he's a mentor to Dexter Fowler, and he was in the clubhouse and talking with Dexter Fowler. Can you kind of explain that? And hopefully they didn't go over supplements or anything like that, but
No, I don't think so. I'll say Barry, by the way, he's not somebody I spent any time around, but he looks quite lean. He's not the Barry Bonds I think we remember seeing it 10 years ago, but that's neither here nor there. This wasn't new that Fowler had a relationship with Bonds. It was something that had been written about before. I wrote about it in spring training when I did a longer story on Dexter. They were put in touch together by Glenn Allen Hill, who's working in the Rockies system. They worked out in the off season. Dexter would fly in and out of California when their schedules lined up. And, Dexter does seem to have some reticence about saying specifically what they do. But he said it's everything. They'll go to the cage, they'll watch video, they'll talk. We kind of pressed him, well, how has Bonds changed you? Give us a specific example of something you've done with your swing. I'm sure it's there. He doesn't seem to be totally comfortable saying, like, yeah, Barry taught me this, Barry taught me that. But you know what? That's his right. I don't think anybody can hold that against him. And I don't think anybody would complain about Barry Bonds. If you're a fan of the Astros, is it a bad thing that Barry Bonds, arguably the greatest hitter of all time, is helping your center fielder? Probably not. So it's an interesting side note. He showed up in the clubhouse. Whether he'll be in the clubhouse again when we're in Oakland, I don't know. There's a certain awkwardness if you're bringing in an outside coach, right? You have a hitting coach that the team pays for and provides. I don't think it's the kind of thing that you're going to see too often, but it's Barry Bonds. That's kind of a special situation. So,
wanted to also address the bullpen situation here because Chad Qualls was in the game for the Astros in the ninth when they blew a save versus the A's over the weekend. And Chad Qualls has been very vocal that he preferred defined roles for the pen, but Porter has reiterated here recently again that he will go with the closer by committee and undefined roles until there's reason to change. What's your opinion on all that?
Well, I wouldn't say Qualls has been very vocal. I asked him the question directly before the start of the season, and he said, yeah, ideally prefer defined roles. And he didn't exactly back away from that the other night. He said, it's not a big deal. I think most of them would prefer it, but I also don't think any of them are looking at it as the reason that the bullpen has struggled of late. Chad had the illness. He hadn't pitched in several days, over a week at that point. I don't think the bullpen by committee has been proven on this team yet to be a disaster. It's going to keep going. We'll see when we get Jesse Crane back, if they decide to go a different direction. We'll see if things continue to be problematic. The reality is the team hasn't been in enough positions to win. We haven't had enough save situations of late for the bullpen really to have a chance to show itself. And even when it has been out there, it's not as though they've been able to set up their bullpen exactly as they would want. Give it a little time. Let's see where we are in mid-May.
It sounds like you're getting closer to the ballpark, hopefully. I just want to ask you before you go, since we're talking to you in Seattle, is this one of your favorite stops around the major leagues?
Yeah, it's a great city. I mean, you can't. I've been here, maybe 4 or 5 times at this point. It's a beautiful city. The weather here is great. It's not too cold. Yeah, the American League West has. So people might say that the one stop in the American League West they don't like is Houston and Arlington, but Oakland, Anaheim, and Seattle are great cities to visit.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on as always, Evan. Thanks again. Thanks for stopping for a few minutes for us.
Thanks, guys, and I apologize for the Seattle street noise in the background.
Oh, hey, that's good. We got to have some of that. You're not sleepless in Seattle or anything like that. So
there you go. Exactly.
Yeah, we didn't pipe this stuff in. This is real noise we're giving you people. It's actual city noise. So that was Evan Drellich with Houston Chronicle. You can find his stuff on chron.com. Catch him on Twitter at Evan Drellich. You can check all our interviews out at houstonsportstalk.net. Thanks again.